CMMS Radio talks about all things CMMS, computerized maintenance management software, focused on maintenance management. It's the people, the process, and the culture that make your CMMS journey a success. All right, everybody, welcome back to CMMS Radio. We are meeting with Paul Van Metre, and the first thing we got to talk about before I do all that intro mumbo jumbo is, Paul, you just got back from Southern California, the OC, Orange County, and you did what looked to me like a great workshop, and that was focused on winning more profitable work. Can you tell me a little bit about the experience without giving away the goods when it comes to what that workshop is all about? Because I know that kind of tours around.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, Greg. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, it was the first, what we're calling a regional workshop for anyone that wants to join. Not customers only, but it really, this one, and I can tell you the three main topics we dug into without giving away the goods, but it was about winning the right type of work for your business, right? Every machine shop has their specialty, their niches, whether they do little parts or big parts or medical parts or defense parts or parts out of titanium or parts out of plastic, whatever it might be. Winning the right work for your shop that really fits your skill set and your shop's, unique skills and machines for a price that is going to maximize company profit in the long run. So we talked about quoting and pricing strategies. We talked about the importance of having a niche that you can really excel in, because the riches are in the niches, as everyone says, and I fully believe that to be true. And then using data to make data-driven decisions to continually optimize and improve that process. And when companies endeavor to do all three of those things well, and they feed off each other, they can dramatically improve their profitability and therefore their company's value and all the other good stuff that comes along with a successful company that's spinning off cash that they can reinvest in growth, hire employees, do what they want to do. And very few shop owners do that exceptionally well.
Yeah. I think, and I want to be real mindful of, I know just a little bit. I've been in some shops. I've worked in a machine shop. I know you've spent a lot of time in not just machine shops, but doing the work. And that's really important. And the reason I thought it'd be cool having you on CMMS Radio is you probably, regardless of the workshop, but with all the things you see and all you do, and obviously you're co-founder of ProShop ERP, which is super cool. It's related, but I like to talk about maintenance management, computerized maintenance software, but I'm much more interested in the maintenance management in the middle, the people, the process. So when you're doing the workshop, when you're out there with ProShop ERP, helping people get set up properly based on your own experiences and maybe what their environments are.
Sure.
Where do you see from a maintenance perspective, maintaining those pieces of equipment that make pieces of equipment and parts and all this good stuff, being some of the bigger barriers for folks out there with the small to mid-size shops or even similar manufacturing environments? What do you see as like a big kind of like, we know we need to do that, but we can't? What do you think causes it? What is it?
Well, I think the main one is that, I'll back up by saying first, I've said this a million times. I think running a precision machining company is one of the hardest, if not the hardest business in the world, right? When you quote a job, let's say you quote a job for $10,000, right? And you're going to make part XYZ at this revision level with these materials and these tolerances on the drawing and all these flow downs of outside processes and other things. Like, that is a lot of things that can go wrong. Like, almost the stars have to align to have it go smoothly, deliver on time, make the margin, that you planned on. And there's so many things that can go wrong that you just completely lose your shorts on it, right? I mean, I know that from firsthand experience. And small to medium-sized shops are typically started by someone that was in that business. Like, they were a tool and die maker, they were a machinist, they were a programmer, and they're good at the technical side, but they're not super skilled and don't have a ton of experience on running a business that does that thing, right? And so therefore, they're running around like a chicken with their head cut off. They're wearing 1,000 hats, just trying to get jobs out the door. And the last thing on their mind is doing preventative maintenance on their CNCs and calibration work on their instruments and gauges. And they're just hoping that the spindles keep turning and it keeps making parts and they can measure them okay and, get them out the door on time. So, and often those things fall by the wayside and it turns into a big problem when their machine goes down for something that could have been avoidable, and it totally implodes their ability to deliver that job. But I think that's the reason why they're not doing it. They just got too many irons in the fire trying to solve, because they also don't have great systems to make sure that all these things that could go wrong don't go wrong.
Yeah, the way I've always looked at it, just with my view wherever I sit, is there's this prioritization, and when you're wearing 1,000 hats and you're the chief everything officer or something like it, right? You're part of that team, or you're somewhere in maybe mid-level management. You're the one that's responsible for the shop floor, the plant floor. You know what your absolute priority is, and those other things, as much as you want to do it, you don't have time for it, and it just constantly bites you, always
Yep.
at the most inopportune time.
Of course.
And I think I've always kind of described it like you got to have the tolerance to slow down and get those things in place, and then you have to maintain those behaviors of maintaining and doing preventive maintenance and those types of things on your machines. But it just seems for everyone like we got to get stuff out the door. That's all that really matters. And we know that, but we're just going to take our chances. And they're sitting on kind of a little miniature gold mine within their operation, because there's a lot of margin hiding in strong maintenance best practices.
Oh, yeah.
Do you have any experience where you've gone in and you can maybe consult or tell somebody where they have those bottlenecks that they could shift and move down line or move into the best place
Sure.
through maintenance?
Oh, yeah.
And does ProShop have anything to do with that? Like when it comes to the data that it gathers and tracks?
Yes, yes, and yes. So I fully agree that, again, these small shops often started by someone I'll call a technician, right? That's a skilled craftsperson. They often will, quote a job, print out the drawing, write a couple things, couple numbers on it, come up with a price, send it to their customer. Customer says, "Yeah, go ahead. Here's the PO." They put the PO in. They take that drawing with their hand scrabbled notes on it and the and maybe the CAD model, and they just like throw it over the wall to the machine shop, to the manufacturing department. It's like, here's a job. You need to make 20 of these. We got 2 weeks. Go. Right. And there's very little forethought. There's not much planning. There's not a lot of strategy put in on the front end to make sure that the back end goes smoothly. And we are huge proponents of slowing down a little bit on the front end, which some people are like, they're like, I can't slow down. I got to go faster. Like get that job out there. But that is a losing proposition. So the successful shops and the ones that, have really adopted and bought into this concept that we, believe in strongly, is if you put in 10 or 15, 20% more work on the front end, you can save 50 to 100% time on the back end, right? And the jobs are going to go more smoothly. You're going to be fighting fewer fires, and therefore you're going to have time in your schedule to take that machine down for an hour or two, do that preventative maintenance that you should be doing, changing oil and checking filters and checking the ball screws and all those crucial things, because your machine's not making parts if it's broken. And we do have what we call an equipment module. So it is a very lightweight CMMS, right? You can define your equipment. You can define all the schedules it needs to be on. You can put in, how often it needs to happen. You can put in work instructions. You can, you could even issue a work order for some things using our work order module. So it's by no means like a fully fledged, really robust CMMS that are specialized in just those things. But for a, 25 person machine shop, it seems to be just like the right amount of functionality for them to really elevate, that super important maintenance to a level where it's like proactively reminding you, hey, you got to do these things, or it's time now to go calibrate this micrometer, and those are also super important for most of our customers that are ISO certified or AS 9100, and they need to have those records to pass their audits.
Yeah. You mentioned the ISO. You're talking about ISO 55000.
ISO 9001.
Got it. Just wondering, because I had someone on.
There's a lot of ISO standards.
Yeah, definitely. And this is the thing, when everybody's out there and they're wondering, well, who should I work with? Why should I go with this company? Why should I talk to this individual? And I'm kind of a fan of, get to know them first. Don't try to decide that first, and look for the signals and the things that they say that make sense, not that is a bunch of shiny magic solution type stuff.
Yeah.
I love, I'm always making fun of the AI and all this stuff because I think it's useful stuff, but I also think there's no easy buttons in this game. And it doesn't matter if you're manufacturing cars and airplanes, or if it's a machine shop that does specialty parts. And, another thing that's kind of cool about getting to know people, not just on podcasts, but actually having these real conversations. You do it at conferences. You've got a couple of different podcasts. You go to these events where you're doing workshops, and it's those stories that have the credibility, the real experiences. Do you have any? I'm curious. I don't often ask this question, but I want to.
Okay.
Any like horror stories as it relates to, and it doesn't have to mean somebody got hurt necessarily or anything like that, but where a catastrophic failure of some kind of equipment, took place that of in your history that really could have been prevented by doing some simple and maybe basic fundamental maintenance.
Yeah. I mean, I think I have a couple that are kind of back in there. I don't remember all the details, but I know I remember a company there where they just did the absolute bare minimum, right? Just refilling oil when like the alarm came on, and just stuff like that. And at one point, started getting some serious alarms where the machine's not even like moving anymore. And, pull back the weigh covers on the CNC machine, and it's so packed with chips that they're almost like densified into like solid metal again. Right.
Ugh, yeah.
And just like, we cannot afford to be down. We're working on a crazy rush job, but all of a sudden things are grinding to a halt and we're just completely stuck. Right. Yeah. It's like, yeah. And if you'd taken even 10 minutes once a week to, take off a couple screws, blow this out, wipe it out, put it back together, you would not be in this position. Right. And that's the type of time that if you plan and structure it well, it's almost free. Like it's not taking your machines down. It could be done between jobs by a maintenance person or someone that's just helping out, even if they don't have a dedicated maintenance person. Just like, all right, this machine is going to be in between jobs for a couple hours. Let's just take a little bit of time and go through this checklist and get these things done. Right.
Yeah. I like that because all of this stuff, whether we're setting up software, setting up equipment, and then breaking down equipment, doing cleanup, doing actual inspections where we're actually not just glancing at it, but we're looking and maybe taking some measurements, some readings, whatever it might be. Those are hard and challenging and disruptive, but the more you do them, you get better at it, and it becomes a part of your practice or process, whatever. I don't care what anybody calls it. And I think when we look at different shop environments, and again, being kind of minimal on my exposure to shops, some here, some there. I just did a almost 1 million square foot facility tour back in February. Incredible. Wow. One of the things that you can kind of glean very quickly is when you see how organized and clean a facility is. And then when you look at the various employees throughout, the operators, the technicians, how they're moving, how they're interacting, I think these really clean shops, I don't care what industry, it could be auto body shop, doesn't matter. When they're
Sure.
dialed in like that, you 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 have a strong likelihood that they're doing better maintenance practices, and you also have a strong likelihood that they're putting out high quality product. They're usually meeting their deadlines. But the thing you described where you're like, wow, nobody checked on this for a while, you know, not only lose the production, you might lose the machine or a critical part, and
Absolutely.
you might be 2 weeks to get that part in, and it might
Yeah.
be so damaged you can't, just because all those chips built up and they started to kind of, I don't know, become one thing, and it's like
Hmm.
it's going to ruin stuff. What do
Yeah.
you? I want to switch to a different question. When it comes to the podcast, so you are not just the co-founder of ProShop ERP, but you are co-host of Making Chips. A lot of people out there know Making Chips, and there's
Hmm.
kind of a bunch of different things that they do. They're part of an ecosystem where they're really putting out good information and great interviews and all that. But you also are the host of both Machine Shop Mastery and Manufacturing Transformed. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about what you love the most about it when it comes to doing those podcasts, and how challenging is that for you with all the things you do, because you go to a lot of conferences, you run these workshops, you run your business. It's kind of taxing. So anything you can share about why it's so rewarding, what you really get out of it, like personally,
Oh
and then
yeah.
maybe a little bit behind how challenging it is to keep it going.
Well, I appreciate the question. Well, let's see, what's the best way to start? I'll start by saying, with ProShop, we have built an incredible team, so that are better at the daily tasks of running a business that like ours than I am, or I was. So uh, I am in the incredibly fortunate position that, besides, in fact, my new title starting in January, this past January, is Chief Industry Evangelist.
Like it.
I am no longer responsible for the marketing department, for the sales funnel, for what our sales were last month, last quarter. We have people that are way better at that than I ever was. So it makes doing all the other things I do actually possible. So anyway, just huge thanks to all those folks who do an amazing job every day. So yeah, I can turn my attention, shine my light, if you will, on advocating for why the precision machining industry is so crucial, and the right way for shops, from our perspective, to excel in this very challenging, very competitive industry. So yes, I am host or co-host of 3 different podcasts and do all these other things. But the thing that just gets my juices flowing so much, gives me so much personal satisfaction, on Machine Shop Mastery, I interview shop owners, and or senior leaders of successful machine shops, usually more mature, usually larger, and what I get so much out of that is I learn a ton from these incredibly wise people that have been in their business for years or decades. But more than that is, my audience gets to learn directly from them in the podcast, right? And just like I said a little bit earlier, there are thousands, tens of thousands possibly, of machine shop owners who are people that are entrepreneurial, that had the drive and the determination to start their own business, and they're really good at machining, but they sometimes struggle with running a business that does machining. And my guests, have by and large overcome their own challenges and their own learnings with all this, and they're just wide open books sharing what they did best, the strategies, the tactics that they used to become successful themselves. And the fact that they're willing to then share back that with the whole industry, and I can be a conduit to helping make that happen. And the feedback I get from, not just new shop owners, because I hear from plenty of those, but I hear from even some of the people that even ended up being guests on my podcast. Like I had a guy on the show who has more than 200 employees. Actually, 2 guys that have more than 200 employees. And both of them listen to every single podcast I make religiously. And they're like, we have gotten so much out of Machine Shop Mastery that, we just keep coming back, even though they've been in the business for decades, way longer than me, and have businesses way bigger than I ever had. But
Yeah.
anyway, I just love that. And then Manufacturing Transformed is the ProShop podcast, right? Machine Shop Mastery is not. We don't talk about ProShop typically. I interview shop owners that have nothing to do with ProShop. But Manufacturing Transformed is telling the transformation stories of companies that have been through ProShop, right? They were running their businesses one way with whatever the chaos and the stress and the late deliveries and the quality problems. And after going through ProShop and implementing it and really buying into the way we do things, they have had some genuine transformations, right? Which is why it's called this. They could not be running the business at the size it is today and the scale it is today without ProShop. And they are grateful for the tool. They're grateful for our team. And to tell those stories and really inspire people about like what is possible with digital transformation and specifically using our tool is just incredibly rewarding. Like, I just beam with pride hearing these stories about how much their businesses have improved, how many people they've been able to hire, been able to grow because they've used our tool effectively to run their businesses better.
The best thing ever is when and you get absolute confirmation that what you're doing, what you're putting out there into the world, and I don't care if it's a podcast or a product like ProShop or anything else, when you get that feedback. And I'm serious about that. Anybody that knows me, I'm really serious about that. I was a former co-founder and owned a piece of software. And yeah, we're in business to make money. But when people are thriving, when people that hear the stories about it can get ideas that might help them, when that people are thriving, are still keeping up with the content because they just want to stay in there, they want to be supportive and they want to learn, or maybe they've got a couple of new employees that are hanging around and, hey, if you listen to this, we do this every day just so that we can, keep up and kind of stay sharp, or maybe think about something. They don't have to agree with you. It's just all good stuff. And I love every bit of that. And I think one of my challenges with the overall industry is there's not enough organizations out there that provide solutions that will be that specific about who they are, what they are, and who they serve. And it sounds really cliche because a lot of people say that they do that, but there's just not that many that really do. And I'm talking about being almost fearlessly transparent and direct about who you serve, even going so far as to saying, no, we don't serve that industry. Love the idea. We could probably make it work, but that's not what we do. It'd be a disservice to us. You seem like you guys would be less inclined to try to make something fit just because there's a big, huge ARR behind it. And then with getting back to the podcast, I mean, I've told you on some of our meetings, just hooking up, connecting, we get these good stories that somebody might hear something that just makes them think.
Yeah.
Makes them try something different, look into something. It's not about selling stuff. It's just about making a difference. And again, sounds kumbaya, but it's a real thing. So it's super cool stuff. Where are you heading next? Because I know you make a pretty hard circuit when it comes to going to conferences and trade show events and all that. Is there anything you can share for anyone once I get this out where you're heading next, maybe starting in May?
Starting in May. Well, depending on when in May. I'm heading out next on Saturday in 2 days to Mexico for vacation with my wife. So that's where I'm going very next. But in May, very likely I'll be at East Tech, out in Springfield, Massachusetts. And then there might be a couple other small ones that we tack on. But the spring and the fall are the really heavy travel seasons. I just came off of almost like 8 weeks straight of traveling. I think I slept in my bed like 4 times in, 2 months kind of thing. But yeah, the summer's going to be thankfully a little bit lighter than normal. Get to spend some time at home in the Northwest with the family. And we just moved. So I actually get to like be in my new place instead of just theoretically having this new place.
Yeah.
But then in the fall, I mean, I'll be going to NTMA Engage, going to West Tech, probably, South Tech as well. And certainly going to do some customer visits here and there. I cannot visit customers enough. I love it so much. They love it when I come. It's just such a good time
Yeah.
shooting videos. And we're going to do a couple more this year of those regional workshops. Right. And as I was saying before we hit record, we had people come from 9 states flying in for this like half day thing that I was doing. So incredibly humbling that people are willing to spend the time to come and, be a part of what we're doing. But yeah, so we're probably going to have one in the Northeast, I think, and probably somewhere in the central area. I don't know where it'll be, Chicago or a little further south, but yeah, we'll be doing 2 more of those workshops this year.
Cool. I want to keep an eye on those. Let me know about it, because maybe I can put something out there. I'll chime in on it for sure. You know that, because
Yeah.
I think it's good stuff, and there's already good feedback coming out from the one you just did this week, and I think there were like close to 60 people. I mean, that's good. And I saw what you put on LinkedIn about the setup you had, and you were doing some recording, and awesome, nice looking bus that you guys took for the actual shop floor tour that was done at an offsite. So all really cool stuff. I want to switch you into what all first timers must suffer through on CMMSradio. And this is the fun question segment. No wrong answers. You don't have to worry about that. I want to crack through these for you and then get you back to business. So, fun question number 1. What is your favorite music?
Oh man. I like a lot of different kinds of music, but I am a classic rock guy. Give me some Pink Floyd, give me some Eric Clapton, give me some, stuff from that era, and I am just a happy camper. So I'm always tuning into that. That's you look at my Spotify, they'll have the most hours in that genre.
Cool. Good stuff. Fun question number 2. What is your favorite sport or hobby? And on sport, it doesn't have to be one that you play. It might be one that you like to root for, cheer for, something like that.
Well, I am not a classic, like hardcore sports guy. I couldn't tell you when football or basketball season starts or ends, or baseball. But I love auto racing. I probably love to do it more than I actually love to watch it, although I could totally watch racing all day long. But yeah, I love driving cars fast at the edge, right on the edge of crashing, or, sliding across the track. And that is something I don't do as much as I want to, but I will do a lot more again when I retire one day in the very distant future.
Nice. I love when anybody's into cars, auto racing, stuff like that, because I'm kind of a car guy myself. Certainly not an expert or anything, but getting on track, there is nothing like it. Nothing like it. I encourage everybody to do it, because number 1, you're in the right environment to do the things we really want to do out on the streets, and that's just not the place to do it. And I'm not being a grumpy old man about it. I'm saying, people around you, when you're out there ripping and doing all that stuff, they don't know what to do. When you're on track, depending on the group that you're in, they know what to do. So it's really cool stuff. Plus, you're into machine shops and all that. That always relates to racing. You're seeing the things that are built, the things that are fabricated in action. And usually I don't chime in commentary on your answers, but you kind of got me fired up about that when you're talking about auto racing and cars. So that's cool stuff. Now here's the big one. No wrong answers.
All right.
What is your philosophy, perspective, opinion, anything at all when it comes to the concept of work-life balance?
I have more and more leaned into the idea of this integrated life, where you're not actually trying to balance one versus the other. You're living in a way where those things are kind of harmonious together. And if you don't absolutely love what you do, it's really hard to do that. But I just went on a trip to Italy, and the first week was just with my wife. The second week, we were touring factories of CNC machine makers and tooling makers, and in the evenings, we were going out to cool restaurants, and it's just like it was all just my life, right? It wasn't like which part is life, which part is work. It's all my life, and I love every moment of it, and doing it in a way that they're harmonious together, I think is the best of all worlds. And, I wish that everyone could do that. I know they can't always do that, but that's my answer.
I like it. And I saw some of the stuff you posted when you were in Italy, and I thought it was so cool that you're able to do that and show us, for those that can't go to those locations and see these shops and, the different cultures. So that's always cool stuff. So finally, we got it done, man. Everybody, this is Paul Van Metre. He is the co-founder of ProShop ERP. He's got more than one podcast out there. You'll see him on the trade show circuit. Check out his workshops. It's real stuff. And I just hope we get to do this again someday, Paul, but thank you for being on CMMS Radio.
Thanks, Greg. I love your show. Love the way you show up and give back to every bit of industry, whether it's machining or anything else where maintenance matters. And keep up the great stuff, man.
Right back at you, brother. Thank you.
Cheers, buddy.
Cheers. Did you find this episode helpful? Please send us some feedback, suggest a topic, or ask a question. Reach out to CMMS Radio if you need a co-pilot on your CMMS project. Visit CMMSradio.com and use the What's on Your Mind link. Thank you for tuning in to CMMS Radio, your resource for all things CMMS, from selection to implementation, to help you make better choices, learn from industry experts, and have a successful CMMS journey.